Lartigue, and today I will be talking about my trespass management plan for the John W. and Margaret Jones Langdale Forest located in Tiff County, Georgia. A brief overview: this is a management plan, so it will address the current trespassing issue at the Langdale Forest, along with providing potential solutions to that issue. Some background information: the Georgia statute section 16-7-21 defines trespassing as the act of knowingly crossing onto the property boundary of someone else without obtaining permission beforehand. Private property in this case can be defined as houses, boats, vehicles, land, and even train tracks. In the state of Georgia, it is not lawfully necessary to prohibit someone's presence on their property. For example, landowners do not have to post no trespassing signs in order for their land to be private. So why is trespassing an issue? In general, trespassing can lead to other illegal activities such as timber theft and poaching, which can overall risk the health of the forest. There's also a liability that falls on the landowner if the landowner utilizes things such as animal traps, tripwires, pitfall traps, and spring guns if a trespassing party were to be injured, and those things would be present on the property. Specifically for the Langdale Forest, trespassing creates a great risk for students and faculty safety, along with this forest utilizes things such as animal traps in order to maintain wildlife populations and for laboratory exercises. So property description: it is the John W. and Margaret Jones Langdale Forest, also known as the Langdale Forest. It was purchased by the Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College Foundation in 2018, and it is currently managed by Mr. Grant Rentz, who is a registered forester, and he is my stakeholder for this project. He is responsible for maintaining the forest health along with managing the wildlife population that is present. The property totals around 934.8 acres and is split into 3 different tracts. And at the time of acquisition, the property was not completely fenced in, but in 2023, a partial fencing of the property was complete after a previous study done on the property identified the need for fencing present. So this map shows the Langdale Forest in the 3 tracts. Over here in the blue, we have the Willisville tract, and it measures 422.4 acres. The red is the Big Hill tract, and it measures 253.7 acres, and the Christmas tree tract is outlined in green, and it measures 258.7 acres. And in the top right corner, you can see the inset map where the property is located in relation to Tiff County. Like I mentioned before, there was a previous project that was conducted on the Langdale Forest. It was conducted in 2020 prior to the partial installation of the property, enclosure of the property, I'm sorry. The student only used 9 cameras. As you can see, each tract received 3 cameras, and the cameras were more or so in the property boundary rather than the exterior of the property boundary. And Mr. Rentz shows where these cameras were placed due to other trespassing occurrences happening that he knew of. This project helped to establish the need for fencing to be installed in mid-2023, and only about 54.7% of the property was enclosed. My overarching goal for this project was to maintain student and faculty safety on the Langdale Forest. In order to reach my goal, I had to come up with 3 project objectives. One was estimating the number of people accessing the Langdale Forest without permission from Mr. Rentz after the initial security measures were put into place. Then the second objective was identifying potential trespassing access points around the property, and the third objective was exploring additional precautionary procedures that might help to further secure the property boundary. After identifying my project goals and objectives, I had to start the process of collecting data. For data collection, I first sat down with Mr. Rentz to determine where we would place these trail cameras. We chose points that offered the path of least resistance. So, for example, if you're walking through the woods, would you rather walk through an opening or walk right through a blackberry bush? Probably through the opening, so you don't tear up your legs. Which is exactly why we also chose the open paths. We deployed 18 trail cameras around the property on September 7th, 2023, which was 2 days prior to deer season opening in the state of Georgia. The cameras were collected on January 15th, 2024, which was I'm pretty sure the last day of deer season. We chose to have the cameras running all throughout deer season due to the high likelihood of trespassing occurring on the Langdale Forest. The cameras were checked once a month for battery life, and the memory cards were replaced with empty ones at the same time. Along with just the cameras, I did end up walking the perimeter of the property, and I was determining and taking GPS waypoints of the fencing that was present and absent. I took GPS points of the fencing that was not there or the fencing that was deteriorated. Along with checking the fence line, I also examined the condition of the posted trespassing signs on the property. So this is the wheel steel track. Again, it's outlined in blue, and you can see the gray areas are where fencing is absent or where the fencing is deteriorated. So this track received 9 cameras, as you can see in the, I think that's pink, I really can't tell, the pink dots. And as you can see, most of the cameras were placed around the property boundary due to these areas already being cleared, and they offer the most coverage when you want to catch someone crossing. And this property did receive 9 cameras because it is the largest out of the 3 tracks. This is the Big Hill tract. It received 5 cameras, and as you can see, they're in the blue dots. And again, the gray lines represent where contiguous fencing is absent. This is the Christmas tree tract, and this tract receives 4 cameras, as you can see in the purple. Actually, it's purple again. I can't really tell. And the gray lines also represent where contiguous fencing is absent. Note that there's only one side of this tract that doesn't have fencing. Then I sat down to analyze my data after collecting it. Every month, pictures from the SD cards were transferred onto a flash drive, and at the end of the data collection, pictures were proofed by removing any insignificant pictures. Insignificant pictures in this case can be defined as pictures captured by moving branches in the field of view of the camera, or even turkeys crossing. As you can see in this picture, the turkeys were 100% not supposed to be there. And then I sat down with Mr. Rentz to determine if visitors had permission or not to be on the property according to his detailed record of student and faculty usage through those months. It was important to determine if the person who was captured on camera was either in a car or any kind of vehicle or on foot, especially when it came to determining how they accessed the property. After the data analysis, it was important to further examine and put them into meaningful results. From our results, I calculated the potential camera days and actual camera days. Camera days can be calculated by the number of days of the study, which was 130 total days, multiplied by the number of cameras, which was 18 cameras. Due to battery malfunctions and SD card failures, these numbers were different. The top table represents the potential camera days versus the actual camera days. As you can see, there was a total of 2,340 potential camera days, but only 1,988 actual camera days. Also on this table, you can tell that the Willis Still tract had more potential camera days than actual camera days due to the fact that this tract received 9 cameras, compared to the Big Hill tract only had 5 and the Christmas tree only had 4. The bottom table shows the number of individuals that received prior permission to be on the property from Mr. Rentz and those who did not have permission. As you can see, there were 4 individuals on the Big Hill tract that had no permission to be there and 1 on the Christmas tree tract. This table also notes the number of gate interactions for all 3 tracks. So there was one instance that was captured on camera, and it captured 4 individuals in the picture on December 14th, 2023 at 20:44 or 8:44 p.m. As you can see, you can't really tell these people are not in camo, so we can't really assume what they were doing on the property. We can't assume that they were hunting because they're not in camo. And due to legal reasons, I could not include a picture of their faces. There was one other known instance of someone trespassing onto the Langdale forest to track a deer that occurred on November 18th, 2023, and Mr. Rentz became aware of that after the fact when the guy basically tattletaled on himself, trying to brag about his deer that he shot. This map shows where the 2 incidents took place. As you can see on the Big Hill tract, the red tract, this circle represents the camera that captured the 4 individuals on the picture. And we can assume that the 4 people accessed the property from the area that was marked contiguous fencing absent. Then up in the big Christmas tree tract, there was this instance that was not captured on camera, and as you can see, where they crossed on the property was a little too far over from my camera. The gate interactions are a very important aspect to mention in this project due to these interactions could have been trespassing instances if the gates and the fencing were not there. So there was a total of 12 interactions, and one occurred on the Big Hill tract, and that's this guy right here. And then the rest of them, there was 11 on the Christmas tree tract. Fun fact, that's AVAC B right there. So this graph shows the previous project results before the partial enclosure, and it compares it to my results, which was after the partial enclosure. As you can see, the previous project had 38 total trespassing individuals, and the most recent project had only 5 total trespassing individuals. The rate of trespassing has decreased overall by 86.8% since the installation of partial fencing of 54.7% of the property boundary. During my data observations and data collection, I did observe the signage. Now, I did not take exact GPS points of where these signs were located, so I do not have an exact location nor number to make a foolproof recommendation, but a majority of the signs I did observe were on the ground or destroyed, or you could see where a sign was supposed to be, but you couldn't find the sign around there at all. With all these results, it is important to break down each and discuss the 2 big questions. Why is this important, and how is this relevant? So the overall rate of trespassing did decrease by 86.8%. While the number is great, there's still that other 13.2% of trespassing that should be addressed on the Langdale forest. It can be assumed that the partial enclosure of the fence of the property was a major factor in this decrease. That along with the general awareness of that neighboring properties came to when they had their property boundaries better defined by the fencing that was installed and signs that were posted near the property. Major trespass access points remain in areas where fencing is either absent or deteriorated, so the fence would not be able to deter a person. An example of the fencing that was so deteriorated is on the right. You can barely see the wiring there, and then this fence was one of the new fencing that was installed on the back side of one of the tracks. The current sign usage around the property may have had an impact on this decrease in trespassing due to the fact the signs were posted immediately after the enclosure of the property was complete. However, most of these signs were observed on the ground and weathered after and fallen off the initial post, whether that was a tree or actually on the fence line. The downfalls with the cameras are also important to note. Since the cameras utilized in the study were only checked once a month, this significantly decreased the trespassing address rate. So Mr. Rentz was not able to actually go see why someone was on the property without permission. The other issue with these cameras was the placement of some of them. Some cameras were pointed in directions that pointed straight into a major roadway, and this caused the cameras to take a picture every time a car passed by, which led to a decreased battery life and a issue with the memory cards filling up. So, after further researching techniques used to regulate trespassing and other considerations, I created 3 management recommendations to further protect the property, along with protecting students from backing on the Langdale forest. My first management recommendation is the maximum cost option, and this option includes complete the fencing around the property. All these numbers are based off of the previous project that was the previous installation of the fencing out there, and this cost does not include the cost of labor and land and site prep for the fencing. So there's approximately 10,000 feet of the property that does not have fencing, and for the fencing materials along with labor to install the fencing, it would cost between, you can see the cost on the board, but $150,000 to $210,000. This cost, like I said, does not account for the site prep. This is my second management recommendation. It is the medium cost option, and it includes maximizing the cellular camera use and increased signage. So, cameras for this option would cost anywhere from $3,299 to $6,599, with an additional annual cost of $429 to $660, depending on which camera brand is purchased. This range is based on purchasing 33 trail cameras, cellular trail cameras, to cover the 3 tracks. The other part of this option includes purchasing a higher quality of signs to combat fast weathering of the current posted sign, as you can see on the right. And my thought process with replacing it with cameras that look like this, even if you don't have a camera in that location the sign is present, it still acts as more of like a scare tactic to convince people not to cross because they're thinking they're going to get reported and busted. So these signs on the left can range anywhere between $15 to $20 a piece, and it is recommended to post these signs in areas where fencing is deteriorated or completely missing. To properly cover the property, it is recommended to place approximately 60 signs 500 feet apart from each other. The total cost of signage would be $900 to $1,200, which brings the total cost to $4,199 to $7,799. This does not include the cost of labor of installing the signs and putting up the cameras and checking the cameras every once in a while. And I also believe that this would be the most effective option for the Langdale Forest due to when you post signs, it can decrease trespassing by 30%. And I feel like with the cameras, especially with leave Mr. Rents with the ability to address these people right on site. My third management recommendation is the low cost option. It includes few cellular cameras across the property. Most of the cameras would be located on the main gates, so there's only 3 main gates that are utilized by students and faculty and Mr. Rents around the 3 tracks. And then the rest of the cameras could be used on areas that have been known for trespassing. For example, placing the cameras near where the 2 trespassing incidents were captured. This option would only require approximately 8 cameras for all 3 tracks, and the pricing for this option would range from $799 to $1,599, plus the additional $104 to $160 for annual cost of subscriptions to these cellular cameras. The total cost for this recommendation would be $903 to $1,759. I would like to say thank you to my advisor for this project, Dr. Jason Scott, along with my stakeholder, Mr. Grant Rents, he's unfortunately not here, and Mr. Philip Ford for supplying me with the trail cameras along with the GPS unit used. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Jillian?
Was there an evaluation of the effectiveness of different types of fencing around the property?
So, from what I was told, Mr. Rents actually had a 5 to 7 foot fence installed around the entire property. So some areas it's 5 foot, some areas it's 7 foot. I don't know if that really answers your question, but.
You had said that you picked 500 feet apart for the signage being placed out there. Why did you come up with that value?
When I actually looked up, that is what the state of Georgia recommends in order to, if you have to take someone to court for trespassing, that's the general number that they ask if the signs are placed.
So you make the most expensive recommendation, which is fencing, but you really only had one trespassing incident on one side. So could you perhaps make another recommendation that's just putting fencing in the problem area and the others leaving for now?
That could be an option, definitely. There was actually 2 incidents that of known trespassing on 2 different parts that didn't have fencing present. I'm trying to go back to the picture, I'm sorry. So as you can see, the Christmas tree track was in areas that didn't have the fencing there. And due to research, there was actually a research based on railroad tracks. There was they had a decrease in trespassing by 94% when they installed fencing.
What did that fencing look like, though?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay.
The paper didn't really go into much detail as far as, because I think they were doing research on the effectiveness on fencing on railroads.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't really specify what kind of fence it was.
And what was your primary recommendation from the 3 options you presented? You glossed over that a little bit. I just wanted to have a chance to clarify that and maybe offer some rationale for why you picked the one you did.
So this was the one I recommend the most due to the fact, now the camera numbers I feel like could be adjusted if Mr. Rents did not want to purchase 33 cameras. That's being over the top protective. However, the signage I feel like is really important, because I'm sorry, but these, I don't know if y'all have ever seen these out there, they're paper thin. I've seen more falling on the ground than posted on trees anymore, and I have almost ran them over with a lawnmower when I used to work out there.
Do you think it's from just weathering, or are people pulling them off?
Probably both. Honestly, people are disrespectful to property that isn't theirs. But also, I feel like most of the time when people come across where fencing is deteriorated, they might think that the property is abandoned or it's not owned anymore by someone, because it's not, the fencing is not kept.
But, so you picked this one, why did you disregard the others? Just justify this versus those, if you could.
So, with research, again, like the signage, increasing the cost, or decreasing the percentage of trespassing. Just knowing that, yes, the foundation has some deeper pockets, but the complete fencing might not meet their objectives of keeping the aesthetics of the property. And I had all these numbers, but I can't really remember any of them. But I will compare it to this. So I thought about this all day today because I figured someone would ask the question. If you have a vehicle and it is your private property, you have a right for that. What do you do to keep people out of your car? You lock your car. Now what's stopping someone from breaking the window and still stealing stuff out of your car? There's nothing stopping them. Now let's say you had cameras outside of your house. Yes, it might not prevent, but it might also prevent just with the scare tactics. But it could also have evidence that someone broke in your vehicle. Now to take a further step, put your car in a garage. Is someone going to break into your house just to go to your car in a garage? Probably not. So I think the same thing can be applied to the forest. And then actually has some other slides. These are the 3 cameras that I looked at in the pricing. These are some other examples of signage if the Langdale Forest Mayback Foundation doesn't want to use really ugly signs like the one on the right. It can use nicer looking ones like the one.
Any other questions?